The best kept secrets in the yachting industry are here with me today. Everyone, I've got Sarah Powell Fowler. She is a nutritionist and a coach for yacht chefs. And I've got Tessa, a certified dietitian, yacht stew, and deckhand. Now imagine being that many roles in one. But they're not secrets anymore. Oh no, they are blowing up in the yachting industry, and I am lucky to have them with me today, our Faceless crew and small vegan kitchen and navigating balance in one room. Everybody, I would like you to meet my guests today, Sarah and Tessa, and I will give you the opportunity, ladies, to introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and let's get right into it.
Hi, Tracy.
Sarah, why don't you tell us what you do, who you are, what you bring to the industry, and what is Small Vegan Kitchen all about?
I come from the food industry with a background in research and development of food and food production. I'm a certified coach and plant-based nutrition advocate. I live on board a sailboat and with my family, and we sail around the world. And I've always been really interested in being able to provide us with the best nutrition to be able to deal with our active water-based lifestyle. And so I started just taking a really keen interest in nutrition and how we can use that as a tool to enhance our well-being whilst we're at sea. And slowly but surely it's grown. And now I'm working with yacht chefs, helping them implement, not just eco-friendly galleys, but plant-based nutrition for their menus. As a staple, as a basic and a foundation for helping the yacht crew be able to deal with these hard seasons that they have to do.
Thank you, Sarah. And Tessa, what about you? Who are you? Why are you suddenly in our inboxes every day? Tell us about Tessa.
Hi, Tracy. Hi, Sarah. So I'm Tessa. I am a registered dietitian and personal trainer. I practiced dietetics a lot in South Africa for a few years and then joined yachting, as everyone does, to travel. I couldn't help myself by starting navigating balance. The industry is so unique. There's a lot of unpredictability, a lot of chaos in the industry, a lot of stress in the industry that causes us to maybe use unhealthy coping mechanisms, and often that comes in the form of bad nutrition habits. So I founded Navigating Balance really to help yacht crew just reach their full potential, work on their mindset around food, really optimize their nutrition and their fitness according to what they have available to them and their unique boat. And I'm really excited to be here with Sarah because I think speaking to a chef will just give me an even broader insight into the way you think and how I can actually further help crew in that situation.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Welcome, ladies, and thank you for joining our Faceless crew and for taking the time to talk to our community about something that's actually very important. We usually depend on the chefs to think for us, to provide us with all the nutrition that we need. But we have to understand that as crew and as individuals, we actually have a responsibility for ourselves and our own well-being. And even as a community on board, to actually share what we know or what we have learned with others. And the most important thing about this is that we have real people in the industry and who are willing to share with each other. And so I really thank you for this talk. And I'm excited to start this conversation because I'm the one learning and you're the ones who are really informing us. So imagine I'm a crew member on board. Do your magic. Do your thing and tell me everything that I need to know. And I know this is a topic that's quite big, quite broad, and can take up many, many, many calls, but we have to start somewhere. And Sarah and Tessa have been taking the time on their channels to really inform the crew, to educate us. Education is one of the key points of our Faceless Crew's platform. It's upskilling crew. And when we say upskilling, we mean anything that really enhances your knowledge And yes, crew, your nutrition, your well-being, your welfare, this is important to us. And this is something that you need to upskill in for yourselves and for your well-being on board the boat, because it's not just about the guests, it's actually about you. So we're going to start, and let's talk to Tessa first. She's going to explain the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist, because Tessa is actually a certified dietitian and Sarah is a nutritionist. So maybe it's a good idea to find out what in the world is the difference, if at all. Tessa, could you tell us maybe the difference and what kind of dietitian actually bring to the yachting industry? And then Sarah can tell us what a nutritionist can bring to the yachting industry.
The best way I can sort of describe it is like, I'll call myself a registered dietitian nutritionist, but the nutritionists aren't necessarily dietitians. The dietetics is like a science degree. So we have a governing body that we answer to. We have to keep up. Like, I'm continuously doing courses to make sure it's same as a doctor. Like, you've got to keep up with the science. That's just to protect our clients, to make sure we're giving them the science proven tools and strategies to reach their goals. And you have to study for 4 to 5 years. Nutritionists, and you can correct me, Sarah, but I think they dive a lot deeper into like maybe your micronutrients and the real like nutrition behind the food. Dietitians do that too, but we also are equipped to work in a hospital, deal with eating disorders, chronic diseases like high cholesterol, diabetes. I was working in a hospital and I dealt a lot and worked a lot with doctors with like tube feeds, patients that are in shock, really assessing their biochemistry and that sort of thing. You can be a dietitian and a nutritionist and do great work. It's just knowing what you need in that moment.
I totally agree, Tessa. And I think one thing that brings us together is the need for us to use science, because that's really the foundation from which I work after studying plant-based nutrition in the UK at Winchester University. And I also know that it's the science that helps us understand how the body functions, how we use that food, and how we transform that food, which we've probably never thought about too much before, or giving, we just put something in our mouth, and that's it. And we don't really think that each of those little nutrients or the micronutrients within that food actually serves us or doesn't serve us. And it's all about, we don't need to, as crew or even as a yacht chef, be the scientist behind that. But what we do need to know is, well, if I'm going to have something to eat, it's better that I choose X, Y, and Z to help me through the day. And it's balanced. This doesn't mean to say you can't, we want to restrict foods. We want to add as many foods as possible. But yeah, I think what really links us both is the fact that we both work from science, which is the most important thing.
So important. And a lot of the time I'll say to my clients, before we even start anything, I need to re-educate you, because we have this very concrete, especially I always refer to the dieting culture and dieting industry as like, this is a bad food, this is a good food, you should only be eating good foods. But nutrition is so psychological. You should be having those joyful foods, you should be having cake on birthdays without feeling any guilt. But as soon as you strip yourself away from like societal, like your body image and what society wants you to look like, you can start really seeing and feeling how your body is affected by certain foods. So the science can come through in that, but we need to strip away all those concepts before we can even tell our clients, no, just listen to your body, because your body doesn't actually know what it needs yet, because you're telling it different things.
That's totally right. There are so many. Food isn't about taste, and that's one thing that I often have to sort of lay out with the chefs when I'm working with them. Because they put so much effort and time and into taste, but that's really not setting ourselves up for success. While taste is important, obviously, at the end of the day, food is culture. It's nostalgia. It's a community, it's a tradition, it's a culture. It really can make us feel happy or sad just at the mere thought or of a particular food. It evokes memories, and it's all of this that chefs, when they really understand that, then it becomes more about providing something that's great for the well-being rather than just concentrating solely on taste.
a chef's position on board is to make a culinary experience for the guests. And a big part of that is the presentation, the aesthetics of the meal, the whole production of it. But what we've found, especially on the super yachts, is that diet is playing a very important part. More and more guests are actually coming on, and yes, they drink copious amounts of alcohol, but contradictory to that, they want very, very nutritious meals. That you, as a dietitian and as a crew member yourself, how do you balance that role as a dietitian and a crew member on board? And does it interfere with your work? Does it enhance your work? Does it make your work more interesting?
It's definitely an interesting experience first coming into yachting. It's not something I thought I would do immediately. I took a while to just, ease into yachting, get my experience. And I have to gauge with the crew because there's a lot of self-proclaimed dietitians and nutritionists in the crew mess. And even me, I've been given unsolicited advice and I just have to kind of bite my tongue about it. So I think just going as a crew member, just being very open and non-judgmental. There's a lot of judgment in the yachting industry on how you look, a lot of comments on who's eating what and how much you're eating. And it's just not healthy and it's not nice. You don't know what else someone's going through. You don't know what their goals are. Any of that, I just don't think should be spoken about. Weight gain, weight loss shouldn't be spoken about unless it's your friend and they've asked, for some support, of course. So coming in as a crew member, that's just something to be aware of. And if someone wants to ask me my advice, I'm so happy to give it to them. With regards to starting navigating balance, that's been very interesting. I actually started building the business while I was on charter. So during my breaks, I would just kind of start the business there. And it's just really helpful that it's online so that I can manage my time doing both, during my break time, after work, that sort of thing. But being a dietitian and having that knowledge on board, sorry, going back to being a crew member, it's been such a blessing because of the pressure in yachting to look a certain way, eat a certain way, behave a certain way. I knew the signs. I already had that sense of self-worth. So I could kind of just, ignore all the fluff around what was going on in the crew mess and with the guests and that sort of thing. And just really focus on my goals and my own situation. So it's been a good thing coming into the industry with all that knowledge.
Sarah, you basically do your platform from your sailboat, and at the same time, you're coaching yacht chefs to help them to become more comfortable with the whole concept of plant-based and nutrition from that point of view. Do you find that the chefs have been receptive to what you're trying to teach or implement?
That's really, really interesting. And that's where I sort of, my experience in as a coach, as a business coach really comes in, and the neuroscience and neuro-linguistic programming, because semantics I've found is everything. The words you use to present what you're doing have a greater impact than actually the action that's coming on. Yeah, there is that element of I can't change. And we're all doing that. A yacht chef isn't an easy breezy life. It's a very intense time. And the idea of adding something else in order to make everyone else's life happier is just overwhelming and sometimes frustrating. And I totally get it. So when working with the yacht chefs, I really want them to understand that this is actually going to help them. And so we need to work around, well, what are your limiting beliefs? Why do you believe it's not going to work? And so it's more like a coaching journey for the chef, empowering them in personal growth as well, not just in their menu planning and the food that they can produce. I'm not going to teach them how to cook. They are yacht chefs. They are amazing. They're at their job and they are skilled and they have a way better galley. Mine is 1 square meter. Okay. And they have way more equipment and even a team. And honestly, that will just naturally and organically happen. What I'm here to do is help them with the challenges around that. So what are the myths, helping them bust the myths that people will come to, helping them understand how plant-based nutrition works, how nutrition works generally, and how they can save time, but also provide meals, and also how they can be of service. Because at the end of the day, if the crew think that the chef is doing something to help them, then the crew are going to be on board, you know. And I come back to an experience with a race team that I was with, where I would prepare them. I knew they would go to the gym on a Monday, so I would say, hey guys, I'm preparing you this smoothie with beetroot in it, and the beetroot's really good for going to the gym because it helps the blood circulation and the oxygen, and it'll just make your workout a lot more easier. And I'm just going to give you that smoothie. And they're like, oh, great, because they think Sarah's helping me when I want to go to the gym. If I know they're going up the rig and they're going to be there a long time, maybe I'll prepare them some muesli bars beforehand in the morning and say, hey, have a couple of these before you go. So they don't go, oh, that's vegan or that's meat. They don't, this is not about vegan versus meat. This is about the right nutrition for your body so that you can be the very best version of yourselves. And that's how I helped the chef realize that actually they're a leader and they are a change maker, and they can really, be a trailblazer in this industry. And by doing that, not only are they helping, they're going to feel good about themselves because they're going to see smiles. And which chef doesn't want to see smiles from, the people that they're cooking for, whether that's the guests or the crew. So I like to switch it. If we stay in the same lane, we come across always the same barriers, that the same obstacles are always going to be there. Once we switch lanes, so reframing what we're actually trying to achieve and what we're actually trying to do, it allows the chefs to go, oh, wow, there's a whole world out there of things I can do. And actually, a chef is creative and they love to create. And often on charter, or often just in their day-to-day work, it becomes routine, and creatives hate routine. And so it's all about bringing them back to the place that really sparks their interest and really gives them, that buzz we need to make our work really, really good.
I will have to admit, sometimes when I hear the word vegan, I go, I can't do that. I just can't do that, But then I started to realize, especially through talking with you, well, I can do that because no one's asking you to completely change your lifestyle. You've chosen the lifestyle you want. You don't need to change your whole life, but here are just a few things that you can do to make addition to your life, and it will benefit the crew. The benefits to the crew and the guests are so great that it actually overpowers the sort of restrictions and limitations that you put on yourself. What are maybe a couple things that they can do to incorporate plant-based for the actual meat eaters on board? How can they incorporate this in a very simple manner to start until they get comfortable?
One of the first things to do, and this is something that I always do when working with crew, or if I'm contracted to a super yacht to be their chef for a particular amount of time, is we just switch everything from the beginning. So all the milks all become plant-based milk. So any smoothies that we're making, they're just all plant-based from the start. So that means they're inclusive. Obviously, if people have nut allergies, we won't be using almond or coconut. But there are plenty of other possibilities. We have oat milk, we have soy milk. And so basically just by switching over that, and then not using any dairy or meat products in any of the baking, for example. So everything, all the cakes that I made, all the treats, the snacks, because who doesn't love a treat and a snack? And certainly the crew that I've been working for, they really just enjoyed that, morning breakfast with some delicious treats. All of that, everything that I did was always plant-based. So that it was inclusive for everybody. Afterwards, where we should be putting our energy and time is if we do have crew who really want to have meat, and that's their choice. We have to be respectful of everybody's choice. Then what we can do is, if we're cooking primarily or 80% plant-based, because that's our base, then we can just add extra meat, add the fish, add the eggs, add these things on. And it just means that everybody's satisfied. And the chef has actually not done any extra work, which is what this is all about. It's not about cooking for Maria a special meal that's really going to pee the chef off. and you can taste in food as well your energy and your emotion. It's like that food is not going to be nice for poor Maria who's vegan or vegetarian. And I think by making the switch, it's actually a lot more fun. And it gives us, and I'm sure Tessa will be able to sort of bring in her knowledge on this, but it allows you to have a lot more variety. You actually then start incorporating way more plants in your diet. And that has benefits for your gut health, but it also has benefits because it fills you up a lot more. So if you're eating predominantly plants, there is very little room for other things. So your meat consumption will naturally reduce, and this will bring about a fantastic balance. And I'm sure Tessa could sort of join in on that and speak from her experience of how incorporating more plants is actually is better for you.
I have been vegetarian for 5 years, so I'm the anomaly in South Africa.
Anomaly, yeah.
And we had a freelance captain on my last boat, and every time I'd cook vegetarian, because I was cooking for the crew at that point for a few months. I love cooking, and they did not enjoy that I was vegetarian. But it is, ever since I became vegetarian, I used to be such a heavy meat eater. The thought of not eating meat was absurd in my mind. But the more research I did, I just was like, I can't do it ethically. And then I studied dietetics, and I was like, I can't do it on a health basis either. There's nothing wrong with meat, but there have been a lot of studies linked to like red meat increasing your risk of heart disease, high cholesterol, and all of that. So including more plants, you don't have to take away meat from your meal at all, but being more mindful, adding in, I always say flexitarian diet is probably the best type of way to eat. So you don't have to say, I eat meat and every single meal I have should have meat. Including plants, like you said, gut health, we should have around, I could be wrong, around 40 types of different plants a week. It sounds like a lot, but it's not when you're eating lots of different colors. If you're adding in legumes, soy products, you can really help your gut health and prevent diseases by eating more plants. It goes way beyond just, having less gut discomfort. It goes way beyond losing weight. It's really setting you up for a healthy lifestyle for when you are a lot older as well.
It's around 30 to 40 of different plants and that you get in. Now, it doesn't sound daunting to people at first. And I really just want to bust this myth, because it's super important to realize that that's not either quantity. So you don't have to eat 250 grams of chickpeas, for example. You just have to incorporate chickpeas in your diet. But also herb and spices are included. So by having a peanut butter smoothie in the morning with chia seeds, almond milk, peanut butter, and then maybe a banana, for example, and some spinach to make a green smoothie. A delicious muesli bar, which has then a bit of cinnamon, a bit of nutmeg, some maybe more peanut butter, agave to bind it. Then we've got the oats. Like, we're quickly on to 10, and that's just before 12 o'clock has come, and that's not including lunchtime. The more different nutrients we put into our body, the more the gut has to work and to create the environment for those to be able to thrive. And that allows us then to have a healthier, more balanced gut.
Because I'm thinking about the typical yachting day. So at 10 a.m. we have a tea break. Most of the time we didn't have breakfast. So on the tea break, maybe if you're lucky and you're on a bigger yacht, the chef will prepare you a nice spread. It'll be eggs and bacon and things like that. But we often don't see plants sort of incorporated into that breakfast. So I'm thinking of myself, if I don't want that, what can I possibly do on the side that's not going to tax the chef, but something that I can do? And I always think, well, what is there for me? How can I not put the burden on the chef? What can I do at tea break that's not going to make me so hungry that at lunchtime I'm binging on 3 meals and I'm going like 3 times, and I'm actually taking away from another person's meal because I'm just going and going and going because I've been on deck, I've been scrubbing the teak. I'm now exhausted. My energy level I've really burnt some calories and I want to replenish. But I know that if at tea break I had a sort of healthy but balanced and nutritious and yet filling tea break, at lunch I'll actually be a little bit more moderated. What can you do in a case like that at tea break to ensure you don't binge eat at lunch?
Like an overnight oats. You could literally take a big container, oats, chia seeds, any other nuts and seeds you want, whatever milk you enjoy, with some blueberries, whatever fruit you want. I never say like specifically, you can eat whatever fruits you want. And then you just take that out, dollop over some Greek yogurt for extra protein. The oats are really going to help regulate your blood sugar levels. It's a great food source, even with individuals struggling with insulin resistance and diabetes. It really helps regulate your blood sugar levels. It keeps you full, and you can prep it for the week. So you don't even have to do any prep day to day. It's just one time, maybe on a Sunday evening, and then you're done. I would maybe then even just going for like a smoothie or a yogurt bowl, like yogurt, muesli, fruit, done. Like it will take you 2 seconds to prep.
I kind of like to look at it again, just reframing the whole thing and switching it on its head so we look at things differently. So I would be like, okay, so if I want to have something that's not going to peak my energy and then drop me down, so I do end up overeating at lunchtime or eating a snack literally just before lunch, then we really need to make sure that it's based around complex carbohydrates, healthy fats and protein. And so what I would suggest in the break for crew, which is super easy to do and store cupboardy, is to get out some wholemeal bread. You'll be able to have some wholemeal bread or seeded bread or sourdough bread, even anything but that standard white bread. Okay, because that's simple carbs, which peaks us and drops us back down with our energy levels. So something that's made out of whole grains, okay? And on that, I would add peanut butter, which is a great source of healthy fats and protein. From that, I would get some agave or honey or even some dates, if you prefer, chop them up finely and sprinkle them on top of the bread with the peanut butter, and then some seeds. I always have a big jar of mixed seeds on board, and I use them for everything. And again, they're full of proteins and healthy fats. A big spoonful, sprinkle that on, okay? And then if you want to add a banana, you can. Maybe some other fruit that you enjoy with, that you would find enjoyable with it. And then you've actually dressed your carbs. So we're not getting that spike of the blood sugar. We're also filling us. So if we count the amount of plants we've put on there, we're really sort of rocking it for our 30 to 40 a week. And also it's sustained energy. And that will keep us going. So that's something I feel that you could do without encroaching on the space of the chef. And you can have your jar of seeds in your cabin. And, you do that on the crew mess. People will be like, oh, what are you doing? And you're like, oh, yeah, I'm just making it. They'll be like, oh, and then it becomes a bit, oh, can I try it? That looks really yummy. You've got dates on there. I've not tried dates for ages. And then it just sparks a kind of a conversation. Yeah, the chef will go, well, actually, rather than me slaving over making bacon and eggs and then having, to get all the dishes washed up and everything, why don't I just prepare a load of different kinds of breads with different kinds of peanut butters or almond butter or cashew butters for you guys, and then add some extra fruits and see what other things I can get. And then it becomes fun and it becomes enjoyable, but most of all, it becomes healthy, and it allows them then to get on with their morning's work in the very best way. We talk about productivity, but that's exactly it, The
thing is, you're feeling satisfied, but you're not feeling full, so you don't actually slow down your activity after you don't want to have a crash of energy after a break, whether it's lunch or because oh my gosh, the pressure of keeping your energy up during the day it's real as a yacht crew. I just wanted to ask, what are some of your favorite seeds?
Favorite seeds. So in my seed mix, I have pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, and I like to put in hemp seeds when I can find them, black sesame seeds and white sesame seeds. Sometimes I have them toasted, or depends what I can find. And I have that in a big jar. And also another thing that we do is if for some reason we're on, the first day when you're at sea, your tummy's a bit just get some yogurt, your favorite type of yogurt, and you can just put a couple of teaspoons of those seeds in that yogurt. And again, you're adding extra nutrition in the form of healthy fats, complex carbs and protein, thanks to the seeds, as well as a whole bunch of other great nutrients. And it fills you up too.
Well, I like that because I like the idea of pumpkin seeds. I use them as a natural anti-parasite. I like chia because I always say, remember the Aztecs and all the people, the ancient people of Mexico. What did they use as their source of sort of filling and fiber? It was chia seeds. And to this day, I believe in chia. I do like them soaked. You know, I'm not so hot on them being grainy on the yogurt, but I like to soak it because I like that sort of gelatin.
Yeah.
Ooh, and I drink that with a bottle of water with some lemon in it. And what that has done is it keeps me full throughout the day, so I never have these intense cravings. The chia, the pumpkin seeds, I definitely like flax seeds, really nice for females, especially with estrogen inside of it. So each one of these seeds almost has an additional sort of effect. Actually really good without us thinking of, I'm just supplying myself nutritionally, the added benefits.
I use that same jar of seeds to make my own chocolate because I'm a bit of a secret chocolate eater. And chocolate that you buy in the store is just, I mean, I don't need to explain that one. So I make my own chocolate using, dark chocolate, 72% minimum that I can find, coconut milk, a bit of vanilla essence, and then I put in these seeds. Sometimes I'll put in oats as well, and just mix until it can't mix no more. Flatten it out, put it in the freezer, and then, or the fridge. Well, I have a fridge on board, but on a super yacht, you've got a freezer. And then once it's set, you just break it off a bit like bark. And it's so nutritious. And you don't eat as much because it fills you up. And these, again, are simple hacks. You do that and you bring that out into the crew mess. And people will be like, oh, what's that? Can I try it? You can add cranberries if you wanted a bit more sweeter, dried apricots. You could just add anything to it. And you're making yourself something super nutritious that, makes you feel good to eat as well. And it's great for your body.
Great. I mean, what I'm hearing is that we don't need to fully depend on the chefs to make us those additional snacks that are going to satisfy us, satisfy our cravings, our just a desire to have something delicious while on our breaks. Because the chefs, let's face it, and I keep advocating for chefs because I did a little stint as a crew chef once. And I can tell you, wow, the pressure was unbelievable. I could not get over my ethical sense of, I can't just buy them a lot of, Kinder Bueno and Milkers and stock up. I couldn't do it from my own sense of peace. I had to provide them with something that was nutritious. I did get rebellion at the beginning, but in the end, I saw a healthy crew, well-balanced diet, and I was very proud of myself for that, because one of the things that I actually did notice is the whole thing that Tessa talks about on her platform, which is this binge eating. Binge eating coming from a place of emotions and having to cope with such an intense lifestyle, the loneliness of not seeing your family or your friends for months and months, sometimes even a year, sometimes 2 years. And that yacht crew tend to binge on different things, on alcohol and on food. But we're using our physical activity, the intense physical activity, to sort of lose that weight. But losing weight does not mean that you're necessarily healthy on the inside. So I wanted to ask Tessa, what is her experience with her personal or professional experience with binge eating, and what we can kind of do to assist those who do it?
So binge eating disorder is characterized by consuming more than normal, like a really large amount of food within a small space of time, like 1 to 2 hours. You're probably consuming as much as you would or should eat in a day in a very short amount of time. A sense of real compulsion and a lack of control. Like often after a binge, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize like I was even doing that. It's a huge coping mechanism. It can stem from stress, it can stem from trauma, and it's okay. Like, you're not disgusting, but afterwards, a lot of people feel like this deep sense of self-loathing after a binge and shame, and they don't want to talk about it. Like, I used to hide all the evidence in the bin. It was really bad. And some people do purge afterwards. Bulimia is characterized by a binge and then vomiting straight afterwards. So they are similar, but they are not the same, and they should be treated differently. And it is a big coping mechanism. And I do want to say that it's not something that you should be ashamed about, because so many people do struggle with this. You need to work with a dietitian and a psychologist if you can get access to that. And it's a huge mindset and behavioral change that you need to go through to understand why you're doing it and to understand the emotions that you feel before that. And once you kind of develop that self-compassion towards yourself instead of the self-loathing and guilt, you channel your energy into understanding what's going on with you, create that self-awareness. From there, instead of the binge, you can substitute that with a healthier habit. And like, it's so individualized. I could give you a whole list of different habits that you can go to, but it really depends on the person. And that's why I always opt for that personalized approach, because it stems from so many different things. But it is something that needs to be taken seriously. And it's something that everyone needs to know that you're not weird, you're not, a failure. It's not just you failing another diet. It's something you really need to take a few months to a year to really work on.
I use food to really feel good emotionally. And what I've found is that food helps me mentally, because when I eat certain foods, I feel very sluggish, quiet, very slow, very foggy. And then when I eat other foods, I feel great. I feel energetic, and I feel productive. So, Sarah, if you can tell us a little bit about the relationship between food, emotions, and mental well-being.
With regards to food and the emotion, I mean, it's really interesting, because when we think about us as humans, as a human race, food was when we would go off, do our thing, come back, gather around the fire, make something to eat, and that would be a moment of, it would be a ritual. And I think that that's what's super important to really sort of just take on board, is that food it's a ritual for us. I have my little rituals, my little tea, but I have my coffee, and when I have my coffee, I really like, if it's in an afternoon, I like it to have something sweet, like a bit of chocolate with my coffee, and that becomes the ritual. It's almost like the coffee. I'd rather say no to a coffee than have my coffee without my chocolate. Like, I know it's crazy, but these are all little rituals that we build up, and I think we can use food to build positive rituals that allow us to move forward. And chefs can be are key in that. You mentioned about morning tea, and that was something that for me, when I was working on the super yacht this summer, is super important for that to be the ritual. It would be the time where everyone gathered, and you could just see the shoulders drop, everyone sit down, the relax, the voice would change, the tone would change, everything would change, and it would be around smoothies, overnight oats that I would prepare, maybe some muffins, maybe some omelets, maybe some empanadas, whatever it was that I was doing, and obviously everything plant-based. So they didn't focus on the plant-based. They focus on, we're gathering around the table, we're telling each other what's happened in the morning, we're brainstorming what we can do for this afternoon or how to get out of these situations. And then the food just becomes a vehicle to help that happen. So I really think that the chef can coordinate that by creating those moments in the day where he brings or she brings the people together, the crew together, to be able to, enjoy that moment, to nourish ourselves and to nourish our soul as well, which is what eating is about. It's about us, and our health and sustenance, but it does it does sort of touch on so much more.
Again, we need to strip ourselves from what aesthetic motivations and go internally, and like you're nourishing yourself in like, let me try and make this sound better, sorry, but by including like healthy foods and wholesome foods that are nourishing your body into a social situation and a time of relaxation, instead of, you know, having a case of beer next to you, it's so empowering, because now we are really integrating that mindful nutrition into our social lives as well. And there's no excuse not to do that.
And then on a Friday night when the beer would come out, I would go and I would make these little tortilla things with cornmeal, just very like tortillas basically, and I would stuff them with avocado and tomato. And then sometimes I would use things like cheese, just because, you know, again, it's not about sort of it's about creating that atmosphere with that. And then I would take them to them when they're having the beer. I mean, who doesn't on a Friday evening when they're having the beer, want something? But what I gave them is something so nourishing that maybe they don't need that extra can of beer. Why? Because they're satiated, they're satisfied. They don't realize that. They don't, you know, it's not a conscious thing. It's unconscious. And it's all about balance. It's not about saying never have your beer, never have your alcohol. It's about, well, how can I do it so that the only reason my body wants that extra beer is because it feels it hasn't got what it's needed in that day. And so if we can do little things like that, you just take this plate. Anybody want one of these? Oh, wow. You know, it was just, it made them feel so good. They didn't go, oh, she's the vegan chef. Oh, vegan, horrible, horrible, horrible. They're like, oh my God, she's looking after us. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday and she's come out with these things before she goes. And I think that's what, you know, it's bringing the passion of your job into wanting people to just feel good about themselves. And yeah, I think it doesn't have to be difficult.
The role of the chef is so busy. I mean, really, I think of chefs when they're on watch, for example, and the chef has to cook the food. He has to wash the dishes, but somehow he has to come down to the crew mess to set the table, because no one would set the table for him because he's on call. He's on duty that day. And I'm thinking all the busyness, all that stress that the chef has, and he has such little downtime. But I'm also thinking, well, what can the stews or the deck department do to help? And I'm thinking about provisioning, for example. So you have your list of what you're going out to provision for the crew for that week or that month. And what are some of the things, and you've mentioned some of the things before, like seeds and so on, but what are the things that should be on that provision list? Because yes, we can take out 3 bars of Milka. Sorry, people who love Milka, I do also, but I'm just saying you can have a balance of taking out maybe 3 bars of Milka and incorporating it with a big bag of something else that can go with your oats, because things like overnight oats, you don't need a chef for that. That's something that the stewardess buys as a part of the crew provisioning. So what are some of the things, both of you, that you would put on a provision list for the chief stew when she goes to shop for the crew?
Before we get to the provision list, talking about the chef, like you said, Tracy, you were a crew chef. I was only a crew chef for a few months. And it's a really hard job, taking away even just preparing for the guests. And often on board, you get like sort of a buffet style. So the crew do have control over what they actually put on their plate. As long as, you know, there's colorful vegetables, a good source of protein, and like a complex carb, maybe rice or quinoa, the crew can actually take that into their own hands and plate their food accordingly. And then with regards to snacks, I always say, instead of, before you try and restrict yourself and take away from your diet, just add. You can get, you know, dried chickpeas that you can add into your salad, seeds that you said. Yogurt drinks are really nice if you do eat dairy. Again, little oats, just came to my mind now. There might not be space in the refrigerator, but you can get those ones that you add hot water in. On top of that, add in lots of fruits available for the crew is always a good idea as well, just to grab and go. If it's there, you're going to eat it instead of, the chocolate bar, and just having accessible fruit, seeds, things that you can add to your food. I think is a really helpful thing.
I think I would add to that with things like maca, so superfoods,
Mhm.
things like maca, cacao, because maca and cacao in a smoothie, again, a bit of plant-based milk or regular milk, whatever you prefer, with your cacao and maca, with chia seeds, again, a bit of banana, vanilla essence, cinnamon. You can make an amazing smoothie with very little, though the cacao and maca can also be used when you're making a chili. For the crew, to add that extra rich texture. You can use then the cacao and the maca in muesli bars or power balls, those little balls of energy that you can make using oats and things like that. So I would go for things like that. Lots of dried fruits, so apricots, dates, figs, prunes, all of that kind of thing. And nuts and seeds. I would have every single kind of nut on board, and in abundance, because nuts are great, and especially walnuts are a great source of omega-3, which is good for the brain. And then I would also have things like chickpea flour. Chickpea flour is one of my favorite ingredients, and is the basis for one of my chickpea omelets, which takes minutes to do, and is a great source of protein and energy for people. And then I would go through grains, legumes, get a lot of cornmeal. I love using cornmeal. It's great for making arepas, which are these Latin American style kind of patties. So I would just start looking at those kind of things and incorporating in as many superfoods as possible. Spirulina for smoothies, things like that. I mean, who doesn't like to know that what we've put in their smoothie is going to give them that extra shot? When you go to juice bars, you can buy an extra shot of ginger, you can buy an extra shot of whatever, and the reason they do that is because people want that extra bit. So why not provide that? You can make your own kombucha, things like that. I think it's about looking at the stuff that is healthier, and it would be that's what I work with the chefs, is looking at how to change what's in their pantry, what's in their cupboards. And I'm especially keen, I know that isn't the main subject of today, but I think it's so interlinked. I'm especially keen on making everything from scratch, because it reduces single-use plastic. And that's something that we need to be aware of living on the oceans, whether we're on a mega yacht or a small boat like mine. So I think by doing that, you're a lot more in control of what you're doing for yourself, your crew, and the planet.
What can we actually implement on board that's not only healthy, nutritious, filling, and satisfying, but which also contributes to the sustainability of whether it's your galley or what you purchase for the crew. And especially when you think of things like doing Atlantic crossings, so many boats right now are crossing the Atlantic to the Caribbean for the Caribbean season. And the truth is, a lot of the products that you would get in Europe, you can't get as easily in the Caribbean, not in a day-to-day store. Maybe, okay, if you go to St. Martin, they get daily imports from France, so you may be able to get some of your favorite things there. But in a lot of the islands, you can't, and you actually have to go along with what they have. So I'm thinking, if I'm doing a crossing and I'm going for a few months, there are certain things that I can actually stock up on that won't take a lot of space, but I know have maximum impact for the crew during that season. So they don't feel like they have to completely change their diet. Yes, you need to incorporate some of the things that you get on that side, because we've got some amazing stuff on the Caribbean. But for a crossing, what if maybe each of you could tell me 1, 2, or 3 items that you would definitely take on a crossing that it's not going to expire in that during those 16 days of crossing, but that that you continue to get the nutrition that you need?
I'm actually prepping for an Atlantic crossing at the moment. So it's quite interesting that you're asking me that question. My bilges and every square centimetre of my of my boat that I'm allowed to put food in will have all whole foods. They keep forever, and they're versatile, and they allow me to be creative, and I can also add them to whatever I'm finding in the Caribbean, because that is also part of the adventure, is to be able to use local foods and put your own twist on them, or learn how the locals are cooking these foods, because then they're really easy to buy. And if we can, as a chef, if we can open ourselves to that and learn from the places that we're going to, it allows us, it takes an awful lot of stress, rather than having to cook Western kind of meals where, or our typical Mediterranean foods. We're able to sort of dive into a different cuisine that's delicious, tasty, super nutritious, has very little ultra processed food, which is fantastic for us too. So things like oats for me are what I'm really have heaps of. Oats, red lentil flour, chickpea flour, all my different kind of flour. Spelt flour is what I use an awful lot of for banana breads and for brownies and things like that. Organic cacao, I'm taking enough to get me over there, because I know I'm going to be well served when I get there. And then, I have tomatoes and as much fresh fruit and vegetables as I can take over. Bananas. But I have heaps of recipes, because bananas, unfortunately, they ripen all at the same time. And so I have heaps of recipes for every stage of my banana's life. So, and that allows me to be creative, not to waste. I've even been practicing trying to make some kind of bacon out of the banana skin. It's about being creative as well, and taking things over. But for me, it really is my flours, all my flours, and the grains, the whole grains, and actually just embracing. I can't wait to get over there, Tracy, to be honest, because I can't wait to go to the local markets, find out these foods, which will be super nutritious, find out heaps about how the locals cook them, and then even add a twist. And rather than making maybe a chickpea tagine, then maybe I'll make it with yucca or plantain or something, something completely different that I can find in the market. And I think if chefs had that approach, it would really help them. And I do understand that they do have constraints, and that they do have, menu requests from guests who are looking for. But it's also for the chef to be able to say, hey, you know what, tonight's a special local night where I'm going to be cooking once a week, food that comes locally. Who doesn't want to experience that? I'm really sure most people, even the guests or the owners, would be really happy and open to trying one night a week, something completely different that's come from a locally sourced market and has a story behind it that the stews can get into and understand and talk about to the guests. And it could create a wonderful experience for the guests as well. This cacao has come from this cacao farm in Grenada, and we can even take you there for a visit. And then all of a sudden, the chef becomes, this bringing everything together again with that emotional link.
You're actually right, because what's so interesting is that the same guests that are in the Mediterranean, then they go to Monaco and everything has to be so amazingly perfect. The same guests are barefoot walking around at the marina in Antigua. You cannot even tell that they're actually guests on board a super yacht or the owners of super yachts. There's something about the Caribbean that brings out such a relaxed vibe and openness in most people. Yes, they still want the comforts that they used to, and those comforts can be provided in the islands, but they're very much open to the island life. And this is something that I enjoy. I don't do the Caribbean season very often, but I enjoy it, watching how the exact owners can become so open-minded. And that's because there is something about the spirit in the air, and it has everything to do with the culture and also the food. So very often, for example, in the Antigua Yacht Show, in the chef's competition, they would actually incorporate either a local menu, a local dish, or you have to use, for example, the stewardess competition with the decor. You have to use things from the actual environment of the island, and helps us to understand acceptance for different parts of the world, and loving it, and seeing what we can even incorporate from the islands when we go back over to the Med. So I'm excited to see what Sarah's going to come up with from the Caribbean.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
It is different. I mean, my mom's from Dominica, and that's Nature Island, and everything is about the roots. Don't eat white potatoes, for example. We have the dasheen, local starches, and then of course we have the green bananas, the plantains that you mentioned. So that will be quite interesting. Tessa, have you been to the Caribbean as yet?
I have, yes, I have done that. That was my first crossing. And I'm just reflecting back on that crossing and what I would want the chief stew and the chef to be preparing for me. I think if I had to recommend things to pack, for me, the crossing was quite a strange experience because you're up at such strange times of the day, you know, early hours of the mornings or whatever your schedule is. You don't really see a lot of the crew because everyone's on their own time schedule. So I found it quite lonely. You're being banged around on the boat depending on the weather. The crossing from the US to the Caribbean isn't the smoothest ride. So I think for me, like I didn't really feel like real, you know, food at a lot of the time. I just wanted to grab something and eat it in my cabin, which is maybe not the healthiest thing. So something I'd really recommend is things like pistachio nuts. You can get the flavored ones, like the salt and vinegar or the chili ones, that sort of thing. Yogurt, make a chocolate smoothie if you can, and add spinach. Because I personally didn't really feel like eating, you know, fresh veggies. You just want to go to bed, lie in your bed. It was a very interesting experience, and it depends on how you feel. If you're feeling a bit seasick, maybe something salty. Instead of reaching for Pringles, go for those salt and vinegar pistachios, that sort of thing. And then just speaking to the stewardesses about looking at labels. So you can get some really great quality snack bars and products, but often it's so heavily marketed. Even a high protein bar isn't actually high protein, it's just full of sugar. Or even superfoods actually originated from a marketing scheme to sell bananas. So I often use the term functional foods instead of superfoods because they can slap superfoods on anything if you want to. So like really educating the chief stew on labeling and looking at the labels before buying a product to make sure that the crew's getting the best nutrient profile in a product. If for crossings you need to have those foods that are going to last a long time.
The conversation on nutrition is so cool. And I wanted to ask you both, what are just a couple tips that you can give to both crew, other personal trainers, or other dietitians or other nutritionists on board? Because more and more boats are employing a sort of a double role. And we see this every when they're asking for personal trainers and nutritionists, because very often the guests themselves, they enjoy coming to the galley to cook. They enjoy knowing that they have crew on board that understands their special needs, or just sometimes it's not even a special need, but the guests use the holiday either to indulge or they use the holiday to detox and to get physical, to swim and to cleanse their whole bodies. And so you have these sometimes contradictory types of guests on the same charter. It's nice to have you on board and Sarah on board, but not every boat is going to have a dietitian or nutritionist, but every boat can have people who are aware and who are interested and can help in some way, even if it's just to the stewardess to create a bit of a board. So it doesn't have to be that prosciutto board. There are other things that you can do to create for the guests for happy hour when you're having that cocktail, believe it or not. So maybe if you could just give a couple tips for the trainers, the chefs to stay healthy themselves and to help the guests.
Bring it back down to basics. Back down to basics. Look at your cooking methods. Sarah, you can definitely be the expert in this, but instead of, I know a lot of chefs say butter is better. Instead of using butter, use, olive oils and avocado oils, and prevent it, instead of deep frying things, grill it, that sort of thing. So you can really completely start fresh before you even cook the foods, like really looking at the cooking methods, adding lots of variety, lots of colors. I spoke about this a lot on my page. Different color vegetables and fruits have different kinds of nutrients. So if you're eating lots of different colors, you actually already just winning the game. And make it enjoyable. Don't label it as, oh, we're gonna have a healthy meal today. Include a variety. So the guests see it and it's beautiful colored vegetables, or, crudité and fruits, but it's also with the prosciutto, and there's also some cheeses there, but maybe we're adding maybe some more mozzarella instead of higher fat cheeses, and just really incorporating everything in once and just taking that boundary of good and bad food away.
That's really interesting, and I think as well it's about looking at maybe taking an interest in a particular food. So if it is olive oil, and that a lot of people say no, they prefer butter, then maybe just doing your own little research on why would I use olive oil then? Why would I do it? And you'll be amazed at the health benefits of that particular ingredient, and then you can share that. And people love a story, and food. We've talked an awful lot about this in the particular conversation about food and a story and emotion and how those things are linked. And I think that if you then convinced that using olive oil is the very best thing, you are able to convince everybody else. Now, I'm using olive oil as an example, but it could be anything that you decide to use. And you don't have to be, you're a chef. Your primary skill is to be able to serve great food. It's not to be a nutritionist. That's a separate thing. But just by taking a small interest in maybe one or two products that you use a lot, and or that you'd like to use, and understanding, and then coming to the color. People eat with their eyes, and it's amazing how when I was working this summer, and I would do, like, if we were to do falafel, so everything I make is all homemade from snacks. There was nothing bought. For the crew, there were no protein bars or any chocolates or anything. Everything they had was all homemade, and so I would made them the falafel, for example. So they would get their own homemade wraps with their different hummuses, which I would make one with beetroot, one with white bean, one with mango and curry. You've got three vibrant colors there. You've got the mango and curry yellow. You've got your white bean hummus, which is the traditional color, which could be pepped up with a bit of paprika. And then you have your beetroot hummus, which is that lovely, vibrant purple. And then and pea hummus as well. And then you've got all of these colors mixed together on the table with a big bowl of falafel and these homemade breads. I mean, the guys would be coming in and they would be taking pictures, and I would be looking at them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're sending it back home so they can see what we're eating, because it's like amazing." And that's color. That's before they've tasted it. And the fact that they've turned around and said to themselves, "This is going to be amazing," they will sit down and it will be amazing. And it will be amazing because they've told themselves it's going to be amazing. And I think that comes from as well a chef using those kind of tools to be able to create the right environment so that people are happy eating a variety of foods. I think if we reframe it, rather than going, I have to put food on the table, if we can reframe it going, well, how can I allow the crew to be the very best version of themselves? And that becomes then our objective. I'm sure the choices we make when it comes to provisioning and prepping and menu creation would be completely different and in the right direction. So I think it's all about reframing things.
Wow, we've explored a lot, and yet there's so much more to explore. But there are ways that our audience can definitely explore more directly with the two of you. And that's because you have provided platforms to help others to understand what you're talking about, to make it relatable, and to make it easy for them to implement on board without being such a big deal. So maybe in closing, I know we touched on what your platforms are, but maybe if you can talk just a little bit about how people can contact you, where they can follow you. We need to know what's your Instagram handles, or who are you, and maybe do the shameless plug. This is the time for the shame. Sarah, we start with you.
Okay, so you can follow me on Small Vegan Kitchen on Instagram and Facebook. LinkedIn is where I generally hang out because, I'm obviously sailing full time, living abroad full time, homeschooling, and running a business. So I choose my social media wisely, and LinkedIn's a great platform to be able to have great discussions and meet fantastic people in the industry. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Sarah Powell Fowler. The best way, if you're interested, is to sign up as well to my monthly newsletter. Now, the monthly newsletter just looks at different superfoods, or as Tessa says, functional foods for sailors. And then I also give recipes which are created in my galley. So if I can do it in my 1 square meter galley on passage, chefs are going to be able to rock it. It also looks at show me your galley. So we go visit a galley, whether that's a super yacht, whether that's a cruiser, whether that's a canal boat. It can be anybody's galley. And we look at them and how they prepare their food. And we're always inspired. And it's great to be nosy and peek around other people's places too. And then I talk about equipment as well, which I find useful on board. And then any podcasts I've appeared on, any articles I've written, any interviews I've been on are all in my newsletter. So it's a great way. It's just once a month, and it's a great way to just keep abreast of what I'm up to. And that way you can also find information on the coaching. I can fly out to your boat and spend time with you, helping you understand exactly what it is you need, and help you implement that in the easiest way possible. So I'm heading to the Caribbean for this season, so I'll be there if anybody wants to catch up with me. Look out for our boat in the anchorage.
And of course, there's one more thing that we have to touch on, and it's that great resource that you wrote specifically for yacht chefs. But we've discovered it's not just about yacht chefs; it's about anyone who wants something very nutritious, delicious, and very easy to prepare. And of course, plant-based is such a big topic, and you can do a million books on plant-based, but you were very brave, by the way, to write this one, No Eggs, No Worries. And why I say brave is because so many people have a fear of giving up their eggs, but you did not write this to try to get people to give up the use of eggs. You were trying to show them the alternatives that they can use, whether they're crossing the Atlantic and they've run out. So you want to show that there's a possibility of other things. You also wanted to show one way to make your galley sustainable, which is to use other products. So you don't have to use something that you're just using and throw away. And I love the whole concept of including some type of sustainability in every aspect of our yacht jobs, because every department can implement something. And of course, it was a way to connect with the yachting community and the chefs, the soul stews, and the people out there that want to learn one thing that's interesting. And so maybe you could just tell us a couple of minutes about the book.
The book started off as an article that actually needed to be written, but it was so in depth, and I felt there was so much to it. And I really wanted to get people on board and understand, well, why do we use eggs in the first place? Okay, what is their function? How many times do we put eggs in a recipe, but never actually go, what is that role of that egg? Is it nutrition? Is it binding? Is it moisture? Is it leavening? So I explained the reasons why we would use eggs in recipes, and how we can get the same effect using plant-based alternatives. And then I go and give you a set of recipes, really basic recipes. Now I call them back to basics, and I want you to take them, run with them, and make them your own. This is just to show you the chemistry of how to make a muffin. Afterwards, add your blueberries, add your special touch, add your frosting, add whatever you want. This is by no means a finished product. And then from that, I also share with you lots of different recipes that I've created for my crew, for my family, for crew on super yacht. Lots of different recipes for traditional recipes that would normally take egg, but with plant-based alternatives. I hope everybody can enjoy it. It's written in a way that it's intuitive for chefs. So once you have the ingredients, you don't have to read very much to know how to put them together. It's literally mix the wet ingredients, mix the dry ingredients, incorporate them together. I know that chefs don't have time to read think, too much. And it's not meant to be a coffee table book. Okay, this is a practical guide. I want batter on it. I want the pages dog-eared, I want a bit of olive oil to be squished all over it. I want it to be that practical guide. And as you can see from Tracy holding it up, it's quite thin and slim and concise. So it means it will take no room in your galley or in your cabin. And I really hope you enjoy reading it and making the recipes as much as I did creating it.
I know a few people who've tried it and they've all said the same thing, and they like the look and feel of the book, and that it's quite lightweight, so it's easy to fit in on a sailboat, for example, or in your laptop bag. So it's not one of those heavy, books. Fantastic. Now let's talk to Tessa. I would love to know a little bit more about navigating balance. I know you spoke about what made you start it, but maybe let us know, how can anyone reach out to you, and what do you offer?
I'm on Instagram and sort of on TikTok. I feel a little bit old for TikTok, but that's where I am, at navigating.balance. You can find all the information on Instagram. I've got also a newsletter, which I just send out more long form, in-depth advice and tips for yacht crew. And I'm at the moment just building a clientele base, coaching clients one-on-one, very, very personalized nutrition and fitness workout plans. And I've got a range of different monthly plans depending on what you really need from me. And I really strongly advocate for mindset change and shift, along with the science-based nutrition and fitness that come along with it. I'm also building up a WhatsApp community for my clients, so we can have a base where we can all just have weekly discussions, share questions, just a really safe space for everyone to join and be a part of.
Fantastic. Well, you wrote a blog for our Faceless crew, and by the time this airs, the blog will be up on our website. So we encourage everyone to have a read of the blog. There will be a link at the end of the blog that will lead to Tessa's page, so you can contact her from there. And of course, Sarah has also written really interesting blogs on gut health and crew health for our Faceless crew. So these blogs are available on our website, and we really hope that you will take the time to read it, because they took the time to write it and they wrote it just for you. So community, thank you for actually taking the time to listen to us. There's more to come. This is a very big topic, but it's also quite important for the crew. And it's a personal topic for me, because health, wellness, nutrition, mental health, it kind of is all incorporated. And believe it or not, a lot of it starts right here in that digestive system that we love to call our gut. And that gut feeling that we get, it's telling us something. So we want to bring more information to you about that, and how you can actually affect your life in a more positive way using some of these principles. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you to Tessa.
Thank you.
It's a great chat. We'll do it again for sure. And see you on the other side.
Thank you so much, ladies.